Okay.
So okay, we're going with the schedule. By the way, in between, I have to say that we have one guest less because Fabio Palvelli had a family issue. He texted me, so in that slot we will anticipate Arturo Tedeschi, and then now we have another great guest, and then we're gonna have a little break on Discord or yeah, where you can will be able to chat with each other or with us. So the link is in the description. And now I'm ready to add Irgen. Hello, Irgen.
Hi
How are you?
guys. Hi, do you hear
Hey.
me?
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome back.
Nice to see you again. Nice to meet you, Désirée. We haven't met.
Same. Likewise.
Yeah, nice to see
Congratulations
you.
on the 100. Uh, I think you've done great progress. Uh, I think I was number 13 in the beginning. I think.
It's very early. Yeah.
Yeah.
But cool. Thanks. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me here. It's actually a super sunny summer Sunday here in Rotterdam.
Yes. Here as
Here too.
well.
Yeah,
Here
we
too.
can also do glasses if you want.
Ah, you're
Sunglasses.
ready too.
Oh, we're doing that now too.
Yeah, I mean,
Everybody love these sunglasses. Well, I have to be honest. I'm really happy with my sunglasses. They look really like badass.
yeah,
Now you
yeah,
can see the screen in mine, so you can see yourselves
yeah.
theoretically. But Georgi, can you see your mouse?
I can manage. I hope. The
Yeah.
problem is when I go on the other screen. But Irgen, you. So it was nice. I wanted to have a mix of people. By the way, I have to disclose that we don't have girls today, not because I didn't invite them, but because whether they were busy or whether they had to do something else or they didn't answer or so on. So there will be more live streams where we're gonna have more gender diversity. But I wanted to have a diversity of fields and a diversity also of guests that maybe have been in the beginning and then we've been in touch but not on the podcast. And also you were the 13, so that was almost 2 years ago, and has
Yeah,
been happening a lot since then.
yeah. The
Also,
world is a
you're
bit of a different place, huh? Since,
yeah,
Yeah.
or at least back then was a different place, and now it's hopefully normal.
and you're a streamer yourself. You have your Le Confusier live session of music.
Yeah, that was my lockdown new hobby, DJing. And then I did have this personal YouTube channel since I was like a second year of study, and I never did much with it. And then I thought like, yeah, well, this can be something like a creative hub. So we put there like anything from architecture lectures up to music live streams. Um, so yeah, that's something like I discovered or I explored last year, but yeah, I'm not going commercial, so I don't know
Well,
how it's gonna
sometimes
go.
it's good to have a hobby. Sometimes that's just a hobby.
Yeah,
Do you
exactly,
do you mix
exactly.
everything yourself, or what is it like? Is it your own music, or you mix music?
Not yet. For now, it's pure DJing, so it's purely mixing songs. Of course, I do some my research, let's say, which songs and which genres, and yeah, I'm still exploring it. But I think the next step is to try to write music. Why not? Um, anyway, I mean, I think like the software are not so different from architecture software. Like I always liked, like when you go from Photoshop to Premiere, it's almost similar setup, but instead of having images, you have videos. So there's the time parameter, of course, but for the rest, like the kind of commands, the way that you crop or you overlay or you layer things, it's kind of similar. And I did actually have I do have some history with music. Like I was playing guitar since I was a teenager, and I call myself like a failed guitarist. So maybe
Maybe you should get
Maybe,
together with Eric.
yeah.
You two
Let's see.
can
Let's see.
create something together.
But I realized when I started mixing, like I realized like yeah, I can actually count. I can I have some basic music, let's say, education that helps me do this, do the DJing hobby, let's say. So I didn't feel like starting from completely scratch, but yeah.
And since we haven't seen each other for a long time, you wanted to share some of the progress has been done on the with Architects for Urbanity, your office based in Rotterdam.
Yeah, we
So
don't necessarily have to talk about projects. I also have some books here because I saw that you guys like talking about books, and
Yes.
and I noticed that it was like there was a mention about the movie Dune, and it was funny because I also went to see it in the cinema, and actually, I missed the last 20 minutes, so I didn't see the ending because I had to go and pick up my son, and I realized,
Oh,
it's one of these moments when you realize like how much your life changes after you become a parent. I mean, this is just a tiny thing, of course, but like yeah, you cannot finish movies. That's one of the things that apparently
yes.
results from having a small kid.
But how did
But
you like Dune? I'm gonna ask everybody now. How did you like
yeah,
it?
in general, I really like sci-fi movies. So I think I've seen almost everything in that genre. So I
Okay.
like the sci-fi aspect of it. Um, and But to be honest, personally, I didn't see much. I didn't get particularly excited about some aspect of its story. It was like for me, it was like a nice sci-fi movie that I didn't manage to finish.
Hmm.
So maybe maybe also because I didn't see the finish, like I didn't keep it in my head very coherent like a story.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
But
I
what
don't
did
know
you
what you're
find
talking about. I haven't seen it
exceptional?
yet because, to be
Okay.
honest, I heard it was not so good, and the trailers were, I don't know, they didn't catch me really. It sounded just like a lot of, you know, big names, and they didn't tease the story really. So
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet because of that. But I did watch the series that was 10 or 15 years ago, and I watched the original in the 80s, and I loved that. So I'm
The
kind of like
sequel.
I'm kind of like a Dune
Okay.
fan. That's why if it's really bad, I don't want to watch
No,
it.
I don't think it was really bad. But yeah, cool. And in terms of books, like I want to share some reading that I'm doing lately. I think this way the countryside, the report. I find this very interesting kind of study because it brings like a sort of update on the condition of not only the countryside but the way that technology has kind of evolved in the realm of agriculture, let's say, and production, and I
Oh.
because I'm really interested in cities. I think it's looking at the countryside kind of gives you a better understanding of the city itself. And then I think yeah, I think the biggest revelation of the new
Oh.
generation of philosophers and writers, Harari. I think it's my new favorite, of course. Homo Deus, very nice book. Also the first book in the series, Homo Sapiens. I think it's. But I find like in most book discussions nowadays, where I'm usually talking about Harari. I think I find it quite. And then
Cool.
there was this one that I'm reading on the beach. So there was not much beach time, so I didn't progress so much. But I think
I have to
this
go for
summer,
this.
this is actually not a very, let's say, I find it a bit like a light history on cities. So this is a book by Ben Wilson. I think it's a Dutch guy, Metropolis. So it basically kind of identifies the key kind of examples of cities through from the first cities in Mesopotamia, and then it goes up to the industrial cities, Manchester and I find it like really, really interesting in terms of like enriching a bit the base of understanding of how cities emerged and how do they work.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, and then yeah, there's a Greek Greek philosopher I'm reading now. It's called Asidiki. So he was like a student of Freud, of Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche. So it's a bit like the small Greek Nietzsche, but for me, at least in terms of philosophy, Nietzsche has been like one of the most important influences. And yeah, I cannot say that I really completely understand still today. Like when I'm reading Nietzsche or Kazantzakis, I'm still a bit like connecting the dots.
Yeah.
But that's what's interesting, I think, about philosophy is like it always keeps you trying to connect dots and make sense out of the different sort of books you may read, and yeah, that keeps you or keeps me, let's say, curious. I don't know if what kind of books are you guys reading lately?
I was actually looking if I have it here, the Happy Cities, because you were mentioning Metropolis from the Canadian, but it's in the other room. What was Georgi? Do you remember what the author's name was? But it's mostly about U.S. and Canadian cities.
Yeah, it was something we got suggested on the podcast from some of the guests. I think it was something like about it was also about the cities.
Yeah, and about the car and how
yeah.
that whole Eric would probably like this maybe,
Yeah.
how the car sort of like got politically integrated into the city and it was never planned that way, and then the whole in the US and in Canada, especially all the suburbs that are disconnected through all the highways, and there's really no city life in the traditional sense, or no suburban inner city life. And yeah, it was a good book. I actually finished that a while ago.
I was reading something about a book. It's very interesting. It's called Make Time. It's about how to it's like a healthy approach to productivity, let's say. It's basically a concept where you should focus on one highlight every day which you want to really dedicate time on, and it doesn't have to be, I don't know, something to work, but it can be also like, I don't know, spending time with your son or something like that, or spending time with a dear one, instead of just like, it's not these toxic productivity books. And then I've been reading now this book, it's called Mindset, where it explains the difference between people that are convinced of the fact that you are in a certain way and you cannot change, and the people that are more open and they are believers that you can improve more or less every aspect of yourself, of your life too. So these were the two things that I've been reading lately.
Yeah. I forgot to mention also, I was reading a lot of, I don't have them here, but I also had to read a lot of parenting books, to be honest, like since we talked last time, in the last 2 years. And I have to say that they can be quite informative, like not necessarily on how you raise your kid day to day, but like in terms of psychology, like to understand a bit like what does it mean if you don't give enough attention to your kid, or if you don't spend enough time, how that channels through the years psychologically, and what impacts it can have. So for me, it was like a revelation reading those books.
I think that's one of the things that would freak me out the most. It's like, okay, how am I actually going to raise a child? Like, what philosophy, and how do I make sure that the child doesn't get, I don't know, praised too much and then gets imposter syndrome, or you obviously the normal things like you have to say no and you have to set boundaries, that's a given, but everything beyond that, how do you raise somebody to be well behaved and to be, you know, fair, or, you know, to understand those concepts? That's, I don't know, I have huge respect of that.
How last time we spoke, I think your son was just a baby, and now he's probably around 3, 4 years old.
Almost three. Yeah.
Yeah. How has he changed your priority on, for example, work and private life? Is because architecture, unfortunately, it's uh, project based business where really you have sometimes these periods of time where you have to spend a lot of time on the work. Has that made you somehow more efficient, somehow, I don't know, yeah, you can say no easily maybe to some things? How does that affect your professional life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's a lot. To be honest, a lot. But it was also like before having the kid. It was also like I think I was already changing. Like I think I had somehow decided that I don't want the profession to be costful to let's say to personal life. I mean, for me, like ambition and architecture are super important to the degree that they provide the lifestyle that's exciting that I like. Um, uh, in the degree that they are enriching life, let's say, and to the degree that it's making life harder or less interesting or problematic, then I think the whole thing becomes problematic. Of course, there are moments or periods where you have to put some more attention to work so that you see the gains, like in terms of let's say like investment. So maybe this year you can work more, so that then in the next 10 years that's something else. But I think I was ready and of course I wanted to put like family in a priority now, let's say at least in this stage of my life, so that maybe later I could focus more in architecture while being let's say um, done with kids or with so in that sense, yes, it has. I think it has shifted a lot of things around, and of course, you are right. I mean, when you have a kid, you feel the responsibility, you feel the priorities change, of course. So it is much easier to say no now. Very often, I think it comes. That's one of the things that changed a lot, to be honest. Because before, yeah, I would almost not allow myself to say no to opportunities, and now you see, like, yeah, I mean many things are even not worth your time. So, or at least you can compare them to the time that you spend with your child, and something has to be really important to kind of compete with that in terms of time quality. But for the rest, I think it's quite inspiring. I think when you relate to kids every day, when you spend time with kids, you realize like how slow we are learning now things. I think they are learning so fast and they are so inventive, and sometimes it makes me feel like a bit like yeah, I wish if we would learn at that rate still in later phases of our life. I think we would be geniuses, but there is so much there's so much space in our brains, right? But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we clutter that space oftentimes with Netflix
Yeah.
and Dune movies.
And how has been with the office? Are you like in the meanwhile we got to have on the podcast some other people that have worked with you, collaborated with you somehow. And the first project that generated your office was this Varna library, and then from there the office started, and then there were also other offices that started. We had the Anagram Studio too. Was very interesting to see how, like, it's like from one genesis there were different evolutions. How has been the last 2 years almost in the business? Are you working more on the Netherlands, or you're very international by yourself?
Yeah. I think I mean, it was like, I think like many things changed in the last few years in a faster rate than before, at least, or at least in terms of human resources. Like many people, because of the pandemic or because of other reasons, moved back to their countries, or they shifted their priorities. Or so I think in terms of people composition, there have been the biggest changes in the last few years. So indeed, there are people that we worked very closely before that we are not working anymore, and there are new people that have joined. But I think I think we gain a lot from working remotely in these last years. So even for some projects, we were doing site supervision remotely, of course, and in the beginning that scared me a lot, like how can you follow the construction while you cannot go there. But eventually we kind of established like a remote way to communicate with the people on site and get updates. And so I think that kind of helped us, because we were always like working in this kind of collaborative mode when people would join us for specific projects or competitions. And that was good, let's say. And there have been some people that we have been working more closely in the last years, like Irgen Salianji from Studio UI, or my old friend and collaborator Liana Sofiati. So we are trying to keep, let's say, these are experienced architects. So but I think we shifted a bit less the attention on competitions, because also because of the I mean, through kind of maturing, we knew it before, but we see that at least all competitions, they are not as sustainable or a sustaining kind of enterprise in terms of business plan. Not that we thought otherwise before, but I think we are now shifting more our attention towards projects that can be more realizable, let's say, and that can bring some stability in terms of finances in the office. So less competitions, but then of course more quality approach to competitions. And yeah, so we have been following 3 projects that are in construction in collaboration with the Office City Foster. There are these 3 projects in Albania. One of them is almost finished. And we've done a couple of competitions, one in a museum in Finland, and a daycare and school kind of complex in Greece. So we are moving along these lines, let's say, always keeping international. I mean, mostly focused in Europe. And the Netherlands, I think it's like it's a very interesting market, but it's also very, very. It has become a very specific kind of. So we are always interested in the Netherlands, but so far, yeah, this is
The Tampere, the
Tampere.
competition.
Yeah, this is a museum we did in Tampere. Very, very. I really love Finland when it comes to competitions. Like we've done also several competitions before in Finland, but this was very nice. Like a very beautiful site in front of a park in an important central part of the city, and all these black buildings you see there, they are all kind of industrial heritage, industrial buildings that nowadays they are not retaining their original structure, but they're becoming part of the fabric. And I think what we try to do there is to kind of use this the project as a kind of link, because most of the important access pass through the site. This we did together with my colleague Liana Sofiadi.
No, it looks
Yeah,
very nice.
yeah, and then the front facade of this is kind of so we didn't use the whole plot. We I think if you go in one of the next images, you can see the So we did this kind of diagonal, creating a sort of opening towards the park and the temple that there is there. So the project is kind of stepping back to give space to the public realm. and that made it also more difficult to accommodate the program there. So we did a very dense, compact museum in the end, so that we can give back to the city this space in front of it.
Yeah, you can see on this plan, for example.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think for me the most interesting when it comes to architecture is making gestures and statements and kind of new typologies. I think also this typologically is quite interesting with a museum kind of routine and functions kind of facilitated from this backbone on the back, the gray core, and then the public route on the front. So it's a bit like yin yang, the private and the public. They have their own sides, and then from those sides they kind of radiate towards the center of the building. And we proposed a completely wooden, not completely except of the cores, wooden structure. I think wooden structure is, I mean, in terms of sustainability, I think it's coming stronger and stronger. And of course, Finland they are the masters of timber technology. So we thought it was the right place to suggest it.
They're also very forward in sustainability in general, aren't they? They're way up there.
Yes. Yeah, I think sustainability is, for me, it's a very interesting topic. I was also invited in conference in South Africa last year where I talked about sustainability. But for me, sustainability is more important from a critical point of view, because I think also the market of sustainability is a bit like opportunistic, and it doesn't always give long-term solutions. It's mostly trying to sell products. And I think out of all the professions that are involved in the construction sector, which by the way is one of the biggest contributors to CO2 emissions, it's architects. So if we are not critical, then there are not many professionals in the market that can be. And if we are not critical at all, I think we will be just following sustainability kind of directions and enrich companies here and there without necessarily creating long-term gains, let's say, for the planet. And from that point of view, I think it's very, very interesting. And of course, like architects, we know more or less. It has been our education for already now for several decades. We know what can we do to practically make our project sustainable, and then of course depends on the client, the context, the typology, how much sustainable elements we can integrate into the design. But in a broader context, I think it's a very interesting discussion overall. But I think a critical one that should be approached critically, at least.
Yeah, there is a lot of greenwashing. For example, like also timber constructions, for example, this is more or less like a hybrid, because there I see some parts in concrete. I've been taking part in some conferences for timber construction, and I asked, okay, now it's very fancy to do timber things, and I'm not against it, but I'm questioning, like, okay, how many trees you need to cut in order to build a building, and there are hundreds of cubic meters, and not always you can make it with, I don't know, trees that are maybe already almost dying, or maybe they're not structurally good, or so it's a tricky thing. I think it should be looked into it, as you said, very in detail and very critically, but it's a tricky topic for sure. But no, the project is super interesting. I mean, you have this style that it's very, very much reminding OMA because, I mean, of your career there, so to say. So it's a very interesting. And this one, it was also in one of the projects in Albania. Is this the daycare, or which one is this one?
This is in Creta. Yeah, I grew up in Creta, so usually if there is a competition in Creta in the Greek island, then I'm quite also emotionally kind of tempted to participate. Last time we did one, for the terminal station, we had a second prize in the same city. This one was very interesting because the brief of it was actually was it was written by COVID itself, because it involves having a daycare, so babies together with how it's called, a kindergarten, so small kids and elderly home into one kind of complex. And then a community park in front of it. So, and it was published the brief right in the beginning of the lockdown of the pandemic, where everybody was trying to protect and isolate, let's say, elderly people, because they were the most vulnerable. But I think it's a very innovative concept, because you can imagine grandparents taking the grandchildren's children, or parents taking in one go in the morning the children and the grandparents into the same sort of facility. So we did this kind of entrance zone, which is elongated, and it creates a kind of outdoors interaction area between the elderly and the children. And for the rest, we kind of created sort of a constellation of those three functions, kind of surrounded by this frame. That's why we call this the frame of coexistence. Um,
That looks
I like
cool.
this. I like this
yeah,
slope. It's really cool.
yeah. I hope this baby is gonna be fine.
So there was no live testing.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you do everything you in this competition? Do you do everything you together, or only yourself with your collaborators, or for example, images like this you go to external offices to help you?
We do them in-house usually, yeah, in-house. Most of the times we
Oh,
do them here in-house
so
ourselves.
what do you use, Rhino, and what do you use Enscape or something like
Yeah,
that?
this is actually Enscape for Rhino. I think, yeah. Personally, I was always kind of forced to do things in-house with the team, because I never had the resources to outsource images or
Mm.
models or whatever. So everything usually is done by us here. And while doing everything ourselves, I of course, one of the most annoying thing is rendering times, waiting for the render to get rendered, and then maybe you realize when it's done that it's actually not exactly as you wanted it to be. So I think for me, Enscape, the most important thing is the fast rendering time, and the connectivity to Rhine. I think it's very nice, very easy, and the real-time function, of course, it's always super impressive when you have a client meeting that you can walk them through. And now, of course, you can connect also with the VR set. Um,
Mm.
so
And
yeah. Mhm.
and you have also all these assets, right? 3D assets, like I don't know, I think fruits and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
the library.
can directly use from there. No, but it's very nice, and it
I mean,
looks like
the
you.
main thing about renderings is usually the more detail you put, the more realistic they look. If realisticness is the
Yeah.
purpose, let's say. But yeah, we always had, so usually most of our images were photoshopped by Carolina, um, uh, the co-founder, and the last years she's not so much involved anymore. But she always brought this dimension to our images, and I think we will try to retain this, no matter with the software, where we try to have them kind of realistic and kind of artistic at the same time, but without ending up being too artistic or too realistic,
Mm,
because of
yeah.
course it's never gonna be built as in the renders, or at least that should not be the aim. Like when I see sometimes architects being proud of how it was rendered and how it was built exactly the same, I'm getting a bit skeptical, because I think the real project should be improved until the end. And if sometimes you along the way, especially during construction, you can see a material that is better than what you designed, or a system that is, I think you should have the freedom to change it during the process. So for me, it's not necessarily that we build something exactly as we designed it. It's more about building it the best that we could build, right? So in that sense, it's like reviewing and designing it until the last moment. And yeah,
And this
But
one is also somewhere in Albania being under construction right now, right?
yeah, this is Sphinx Lofts. It's in the city of Durrës. We are doing it in collaboration with City Foster and Martin Soboda. These are working images. They are not, let's say, final renders. These are from the latest presentations that we share with the client. So it's a project we are working for many years actually now, and it has been stuck. So it has been stuck in this moment for some years now. They built a structure and some internal walls, and they stopped. But now we have restarted it. So we are taking um, the project, the construction. We are taking the construction further. So and it's quite interesting because I think it's like working in Albania is like a very particular context. It's like you cannot do the design phases and the design process that you would do in Netherlands, where you expect from everyone to be super experienced and up to standard in all phases. And it's a bit more like walking hand by hand to hand with a client and the people involved there, and trying to create, let's say, architectural excitement and excellence by using the means that they have and the tools that they have. So yeah, in the beginning we went there, we said like, this is a design, please build it like this, and then you realize that actually you have to instruct them how to build. They don't know how to build things that are not super standard, or that are, or they cannot imagine the standard that you imagine when you are talking to them. So then you have to make sure that you find the products and the providers, and you give it to them, and you explain. So it's not so much about how many drawings you're gonna give them. You can give them very little drawings, but it's important to them to explain them what are the priorities of the specific drawing, and what really you want to see realized out of all those ideas that you may have in a project. And I kind of like it because I also speak the language, and I like the people. So it's working in my original country. I think it's quite exciting, and it has also a feeling of contributing something. So this project is right in front of the Adriatic Sea, full sea view, framed views, and then we did those balconies, which are a bit like primitive, like creating this sort of dynamic, mostly because there is a super beautiful sunset here in the evening hours, and we wanted to fragment as much as possible the facade, and it's gonna be mostly glazed, the balcony and the glazing. So you're gonna see kind of different reflections of the sunset while you are, and it has, of course, it has a public esplanade. It's the lungomare of the city. That's the last part of the lungomare. So I think also for the public, it's gonna be an exciting sort of a situation, visual situation, when the sunset is being sort of reflected, and of course it's gonna have a public ground floor with restaurants and cafes, and we also have a rooftop on top, which is it's also gonna be with restaurants. And of course I cannot say exactly what it's gonna be, because again, in Albania, the investors, they are, yeah, they like doing things, seeing and doing, and evolving with the project, which I think it's okay. I think once, as an architect, you switch off from the idea that you can control everything from the beginning to the end, then you can uh, you can work with that approach, where you set your priorities in every step, and then you result with something um, that it's actually fits also the client, right? Because it comes from a process that's it's aware to them, it's familiar to them.
It's kind of sustainable in its own way, because it is then created, so it is used more
and it's for
realistically
sure.
in a way.
And it's for sure contextual. And I think that for me, contextuality is one of the biggest priorities. This one is another one. This is one in Fear. It's one of the medium-sized cities in Albania. It's super nice clients. There are two partners that are super nice people, and very nice kind of entrepreneurs for many years. So what we do here is we take a building from 1997, an existing one, and we kind of add 2 floors and completely change it, the facade and everything. So it's a mixed-use rental space building. It has a bank in the front. So here you can see the so the first 3 floors that I mean, that's the old structure, but it's the old structure cleaned up. You really don't want to see how it looked before. And then the 2 floors that we added on top, and then we in the front part, because there is a bank, you can see the bank there in front, and they don't want to move, and the bank. It's a project that had been through many problems that we have to solve during the process, but very exciting. So what we decided to do is like, okay, we don't take the bank out; they stay during the whole construction. Although we are completely changing the project, and what we do to extend the front part of it is that we did a steel structure that kind of is positioned on the outside. It's almost like an exoskeleton. I think you can see it in the next images. And all the concrete parts, they are gonna be exposed, rough exposed concrete to sort of I mean it's a country. Yeah, it's a country that they always plaster almost everything. Like the most common finish is plaster. So we thought like, okay, we're gonna do something different. We're gonna move all the existing plaster and we're gonna show the roughness of the concrete, maybe to give idea for future projects. And of course, the grid is one of the elements. And this is the steel structure that we had in front. I personally, I have a big. I love working with structural engineers. I really like also in the project in Varna in the library. We of course in library we did mostly concrete structure, but also there we had some innovations in terms of structure because we worked very closely with Ilya Lasky in that case. And here I think it's very interesting. We again talking about contextuality because in this city there is a super advanced steel factory, and we went through the factory. We had a full guide. So basically they're gonna build it like 5 minutes away from the site is the factory. So there will be almost zero transport distance, and basically also talking about creating jobs and everything is gonna be in situ almost like in the same city. So in that case I think it's and then the whole facade is wrapped with this aluminum facade for shading.
No, it looks cool. Which city did you say is this?
It's called Fear, and
It's in
the whole
Albania, or
yeah. It's 2 hours from Tirana, a bit less than 2 hours driving from Tirana.
and how do you get this project? Do you do competitions, or do you started one project and maybe through connections you got directly? Because you said also you wanted to be more efficient on this side, that you don't spend a lot of time risking everything with competitions, but also like directly client connection. So is this the case?
These 3 projects that we are doing, they are in collaboration with Office City Foster, with Martin Sobota, very important friend and collaborator of ours. So basically, he's been in the Albanian market for I think more than 15 years now. So they are mostly City Foster's they are City Foster's clients, and we are doing them in collaboration. So those 3 projects, they let's say the client is from City Foster. But yeah, I still cannot answer that question. I mean, in terms of clients and networking, I think it's still a work in progress. I think now that we have realized projects, it may be easier for us to find new clients. And this is one that is almost finished. It's in Golem. It's very close to Durrës. It started as a hotel, and there is a project for it as a hotel. But during the pandemic, of course, there was no hotel kind of services, so it's temporarily now used as an office building. And then there is the hotel version project, which should be implemented later. So we had here swimming pools, which will not be used for now. Yeah, you can see the big swimming pool here. It will be covered temporarily. We also have a swimming pool on the 10th floor on the roof.
Oh.
Um, Yeah, and the palm trees to give this sort of. This is very close to the beach. It's actually 1 minute walk from the beach. Very big beachfront in the area of Golem in the city of Durrës. And what was interesting here, I think, was mostly like working with the local natural stones. So we selected 8 natural stones from Albania and one from Yanina, which is north of Greece. So again, kind of very contextual. And then we kind of blend those stones in the separation walls in the facade and in the stair. This is the main stair, which is kind of a bit like creating a share effect. It's a bit like switch twisted per floor, so that it can be like a different experience of using the stair, not just going up and down, but sort of looking at the other people that are walking the stair. So it gives a nice
Like
kind of
tectonics somehow. Like
I
yeah.
think it becomes a bit of an experience. I think that was the idea of it.
No, I remember this one when we talked the first time. It was, you told me, yeah, we're building a hotel in Albania, and now it's completed. Not as a hotel, but it is completed.
Yeah, I mean the facade and the public. Yeah, I really like this image. This is like a bit like on the one side is a bit the chaos, because on the one side of the project there is this big highway, so it's kind of noisy, but this kind of wall, stoned wall, is kind of represents a bit the seclusion of the room. So I think it's a bit of it's a bit of an edgy image.
Yeah, that looks cool.
No, it's
Yeah, but I think with the
How-
opportunity, I would recommend everyone to visit Albania, Greece as well. Greece is in my heart, but I think Albania is a new kind of destination. It doesn't have so much tradition through the years in tourism, and I think it's I really have a time of my life every time I go there, especially in the summer. The Riviera is very beautiful, and the cities are very interesting. Tirana is it has a amazing nightlife and amazing city. So I would recommend anyone that has not been in Albania to give it a chance.
no, definitely.
When we go, we will get tips from you.
Definitely.
or we go with you. The best solution.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
even better.
that's even better. Yeah, that's even better.
That's a good plan.
It will be this year. We're doing a lot of expensive holidays, so
Okay.
next year we're gonna be broke, and we will be going to Albania.
Yeah, I think
Nothing bad. Actually, that's a positive side of Albania, because it's. we go to Bulgaria, where also is not so expensive, and I hope for Albania will be something similar.
yeah, I think it's cheaper, but sometimes it depends a bit the tourism. We can talk in another discussion about tourism. I grew up in a touristic place. Sometimes you get surprised about some prices in specific either in specific areas or in specific commodities or services. You don't expect Albania to be the cheapest always, but as a rule of thumb, let's say it's cheaper for sure than other destinations.
No, definitely, and you've been very active since the last time we talked. If that's a lot of work behind every project.
We try our best. Let's see.
And so you're now the team. It's always 2 people, and then you collaborate with external offices. This is how you
Yeah, I
do
mean
it.
full time. It's mostly me at this moment, and then depending on the project, there are people that are either part time or let's say they get engaged on the phase, and then we also have people that are from the side of City Foster that sometimes in some projects we work together. So it's a bit like it's a bit like a cloud, right? Everything now is like a cloud.
That's
We're in
good.
the age
That's
of
the new
cloud.
way of working. That's sort
Yeah.
of like fluid, and yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
cool.
think that we have been doing that for long, and I think it's very interesting because that also doesn't give a typical relation of employer and the employee. I think that's a bit problematic in terms of creativity. Once you are an employee, then you either expect to get instructed or you are getting instructed anyway, and that is a bit like killing the spontaneity, curiosity, all that elements that you can exclude, but then your end result is not going to be either experimental or very creative. So I think
How do
Yeah.
you deal with the of course, as you said, there is this side of being more spontaneous and more entrepreneurial because I mean it depends on you. But how do you deal with the uh, big uncertainty, so to say? I was also connected with your private life. You have a son, family, and of course the cash flow when you're independent. It's very yeah, floating, so to say. Have you learned by now to deal with this, or do you have maybe some strict budgeting technique or something like that?
Yeah, to be honest, that's what I've been thinking most of the time the last year or 2 years. It's a bit like how do you rationalize the business plan or the feasibility of the whole office and project thing. But I also have a bit of internal resistance because when you get a bit more experience, or at least in this age that I operate now, you definitely know what you don't like. You are not sure what you like, but you definitely know what you don't like. And the path of making it rational and feasible, it's not necessarily one that will keep it creative. I don't know. I always saw architecture as a passion, not so much as a profession, let's say. And it was good so far, where, as you say, like life costs were lower and we were more flexible. But moving forward in a lifestyle which is a bit more restricted and with bigger expenses, it has to be a bit more feasible, but at the same time stay creative. So I'm not sure how we're gonna do it, but it's a brainstorming, let's say, period, thinking about it a lot, how to secure and future-proof the office in terms of finances and everything, but still keep its original core idea, which was always collaborating in a non-conventional way and coming up with concepts that are not necessarily profitable, but that they bring something in architecture. So I'm not really sure, but it's something that we have to figure out moving forward.
No, maybe as we were talking before with Eric, there are these new ways of financing things like NFTs, Patreon, stuff like that. Maybe there will be more. There is now the metaverse. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something that also. I think if this metaverse thing becomes, I have to understand it better because so far I have to understand exactly what are the advantages of the metaverse.
Well, the metaverse has to find itself first. I think everybody is experimenting with that at the moment.
No, I was mentioning in some other talks I've had on Twitter and in some rooms about the topic, is that for me the metaverse makes sense if it's like sort of a social media where you own a piece of that social media where you're completely independent and you can do whatever you want. Then you can and it can be more interactive, so to say, so that instead of now we're watching us on a screen, being in this virtual room, virtual reality, where we are one step further, more interacting with each other, despite not having to fly or travel. And in that situation, for example, building the environment will be the important part, and it will be very interesting because you won't have all the rules like statics and
Yeah.
materials. You can do crazy stuff out of everything. So that would be something interesting.
Yeah. I think what every kind of idea or like the metaverse that doesn't have a dimension of the physical world, I think it's a bit problematic because I mean I saw the whole video of Facebook when they released the metaverse and the whole idea. I think it's like, yeah, if you want to if you want to get entertained in the digital realm, you can play video games with VR, and you're gonna be very entertained. And once you shut it off, you go to the physical world, and then that's what happens there. I think that's most important. So for me, like, yeah, the avatar, the metaverse, going into rooms, buying digital properties. I don't know. I played Sims when I was very young, so I got excited back then for those ideas. Nowadays, I don't know. Let's see. It's definitely a very interesting topic, or very interesting. The whole VR technology, I think, is also interesting for us in architecture. But for me, I don't see anything groundbreaking or radical or transformative for the society, and in that sense, I'm not very excited for now. But yeah, why not?
We'll see where it goes, because I think that still has to be shaped. So it's really,
Yeah.
I think it's too early to say.
I think everything is like. No,
Mhm.
go ahead.
No, I think my only expectation is the only thing that I don't really expect. I don't expect much innovation from Facebook, to be honest, or from the Meta. I think they are an oversaturated kind of centralized corporation.
But that's why they're trying to attract businesses that are going to bring the innovation to make something out of it. The last I heard was that Zuckerberg was, for example, in Italy, in Milano, and he was talking to a lot of fashion houses, because the fashion sector is something that they're playing with the metaverse intensely at the moment. But most businesses and most companies are like, okay, what are we supposed to do with it? What are the possibilities? How can we also monetize it, or how can we, bring people to go there, and what are they supposed to do there, etc. And I think that those are all the questions that are being played with at the moment. But I don't think the innovation is going to come from Facebook or Meta. I think they're giving sort of the space and like, hey, tell us, what do you want?
Yeah, I think that's the problem when you become so big and corporate. Like you don't hope to bring to create innovation anymore. You just look to buy it around, and anything innovative, when you buy it, then it's not so innovative anymore, because you're gonna also bring your rules into that, and then you contaminate it, and then you break its original formula. So
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, but I think I saw, like, there are more probabilities that Microsoft is gonna innovate on the metaverse rather than Facebook, because Microsoft has been in the gaming business through Xbox and for a long time. So maybe on that front we can see something happen there.
Maybe,
yeah,
we'll see. It's still unclear.
No, it will be interesting, and it's something to be understood. But maybe, like, you can. It's been talked a lot around that architecture offices make a lot of projects that never get built and never get out there, never get realized, and you can sell basically like the whole stock of plans and drawings as an NFT to someone else and say, now you're the owner of this project. You can, if you want to implement it later on, you own it. So I don't know, there are options. There are always options. So I think, I don't know, for me it's always understanding something, how it can be used, and everything is like a tool. Like you can use a hammer to hurt someone, but you can use also the hammer to build something up. So I don't know, I have to understand how the tool can be used or not, and then I can evaluate if it's good or bad, independent from what is my feeling about it. I don't know, sometimes you cannot stop the flow of the world, right? So even if you don't get uncomfortable with some things that are maybe silly, then you have to adapt anyways, because otherwise you're a little bit like, if you were without any kind of social media, any kind of online presence nowadays, you would be cut off from so much. So I think in the future, if this is the direction, we will have to adapt somehow.
Yeah, and I think I now remembered actually. But now that you said that, I remember also the promotion from Metaverse was a bit like you can be anyone you want
Oh,
you can have your
Mm.
avatar, you can make your space anyone. I think we are a bit we are now much more experienced on the social media kind of realm. We got excited initially with Facebook, then we had Instagram. I think people are getting a bit tired mentally and psychologically of being someone else, or at least not being able to distinguish who is who and what is real and what is fake. I think the opposite is kind of true. People don't. I think we now want more and more to be ourselves, and it's not really possible because everything is like pointing on the different direction. It's not so cool to be yourself. It's not so cool to just accept where you live or to show and there are here in Netherlands there are big housing problems, of course with the refugee crisis in Ukraine. There are like I think it will be interesting to see more or I think that will happen inevitably, where people will be more and more rejecting those kind of platforms that want you to be someone else, or to want you to show that you are someone else and make you embarrassed of who you are and where you live and what's your context. And I think that's one of the parameters that they either have to consider significantly. And of course, when you're talking about Meta owning Facebook and Instagram, everything about the image, everything about the I think it was also not their original aim or their original goal. I think originally was to connect people and have them share. So that was one of the aspects that I think bothered me a lot in the discussion about the metaverse. We need less avatars and we need more, I mean, embracing who we are and being ourselves. I think that's important.
Yeah, and then figuring out who we are even. I mean, there's a whole generation of children growing up, and I recently heard on a different podcast, the host was asked by her niece. She's like, I think she was 11 or something. Oh, she's so frustrated. She doesn't know what her brand is. And the host was like, you're 11, figure out who you are first, and we'll see if it's necessary to be a brand or not, or everything. So we have a whole generation of kids or young people that don't even know who they are, and that just have a problem with these things. And then the other issue is, how do you trust in the metaverse? I mean, how do you even trust on social media? Like you said, are these real accounts or fake accounts or news or information? What happens to the trust between people when it's fully digital? It's like, what is the currency that proves that trust or that relays it? I think that's another discussion that's going to be very, very interesting in the future.
Well, I've really enjoyed after post lockdown. I really enjoyed human interactions again. Like you talk to people one to one, and you see that there is depth in their character. I mean, you exchange like few words, and you are already intrigued by how someone thinks, what is different to you, and what they have to say. And I think we are more surprised because we did have to be in that long lockdown for a long time, but also because we are so much into our phones that
and no mask. I don't know how it is in the Netherlands, but like for me, seeing since they stopped the mandatory mask in the supermarkets here, I started going without. So the first days they were like people looking at you like with the eyes of you are an assassin, and and then there are other people without mask that they were see you too, and they were like, hey buddy. So like how do I explain to other people that I'm triple vaccinated and everything? And
well, in the future it's just going to be like a little icon over you that has like 3 little stars. It's gonna levitate over you. It's then gonna be AR. People are gonna hold a phone or something, and they'll be like, "Oh, I can go that near that person. He has 3 badges."
Yeah,
No.
exactly. I think I noticed there is a super nice comedy in Netflix, a French comedy about the lockdown and everything.
Oh yeah, I saw
Uh,
that one too. Yeah.
yeah, I just didn't want to see it. I saw the trailer and it looked very nice. I just
Mhm.
couldn't see the movie because it was so much. Like we
It's too
went through
close.
that. Yeah, yeah. Maybe in some years I will be able to see it.
Yeah, I
Mm,
felt the same way. It's funny. I felt the exact same way. I was like, "Oh, it's just too close to that
it's not
Yeah,
just
funny yet.
happened." No, yes, exactly. It's not funny
more
yet.
painful than fun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking like growing up, for example, we see so many war movies, for example, that are based on real wars or real events. Then I was thinking like those people that were fighting in those wars and they really lost people or lost their mental health, that then they had to be reminded of it through movies that would be coming year after year or decade after decade. And if you've not been there, it can be a fun movie, it
Yeah.
can be an educational, but if you've been part of that, then it must be very hard to see it. And
That's
Well,
yeah, I
true.
was
there is this movie Fury. It's also like a war movie with Brad Pitt,
uh,
and they're with a tank in the Second World War, and they're coming from France to Frankfurt, and like the whole movie, you cheer for them, right? Because they're like coming to liberate and they're killing people, and then I ask like. I figured out I was like I asked some of my friends like that are Germans. I was like, how do you watch this movie? Because literally everybody's cheering against what was your country back then, and yeah. So it must there are certain things that are weird to see represented in a entertaining way, so to say. Um, yeah.
there are many movies with Brad Pitt loving to kill the Nazis. No, I've lost the count. They're all kind of nice, but I think I think
Maybe
he
he has
loves.
that on his CV.
Yeah,
Special capabilities.
yeah.
No,
Maybe yeah. But
here in
he's so
Germany,
good. He's so good in killing Nazis in movies. I think it fits him so nice that role.
like there are often people when they get frustrated, I don't know, with something, or especially at work or in front of the screen. um I hear sometimes in the background here in Germany, like 9999, and I always think about that movie. It's such a bad thing, yeah, that I always think about that movie and I have to laugh. But here it's super bad to being ironic on that period of time. So I had to learn that the hard way and keep my thoughts for myself, so to say.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Nazism was not Germany necessarily. Yeah?
Yeah,
Fascism
exactly.
was not Italy necessarily, and so on. I think even when we're talking about Russia now, we have to be a bit careful because you can imagine that the people of Russia, they are also in a very difficult position. They cannot express themselves freely. They cannot protest. They cannot even have access to truth, to or to, let's say, not to news and information that is not filtered through the. So there's so much you can do sometimes in such conditions where authoritarian, let's say, power is just not giving you many options, and just not making it clear even what options are, or which direction is leading
Mhm.
towards something that is better or more honest, or so. And I can imagine also Russian people that are against this whole. They are they are also in a very difficult positions. But so I
No,
have a lot of
yeah.
Russian friends and a lot of Ukrainian friends, and yeah, it's a very peculiar situation when the political sort of initiative or the political advances and the military ones are not really they didn't really go through a referendum, no. So I don't know. Also, the mandate of Putin. He definitely didn't have this mandate to do this. But that's why the whole operation is authoritarian, and it's all wrong from the very beginning.
No, totally. It's a very complex situation. I mean, yeah, it's a very complex situation, but if you start through different steps, like the first step is, okay, I cannot understand anyone that decides to go starting a war, whether it's America or Russia or any other country. To me, in the day and age we're living right now, there should be always some sort of dialogue and some sort of diplomatic solution. And then afterwards you can go on different levels and check, okay, like this is the first thing, and then the different levels, of course, they have a lot of nuances, as you said, and you cannot generalize, and I'm definitely against that. But yeah, it's like a very complicated topic. Like it's not simple. There are a lot of it's not so simple. You cannot say, you can say only that the side that's starting the war, it's of course, in the sense of the people that are in the decision making, of course, are wrong. And then after that, of course, there are some regular Russian people that are for the war. There are regular Russian people that are against, and it's very complex to understand a certain society, right? So it's like a living organism, and you don't know. Yeah, it's very complicated. And it develops across different generations, I think.
I just have to say that I'm really excited with the resistance that that the Ukrainians show, and I think it's also very very exciting the whole global, let's say, support and solidarity. I think hopefully this can be somehow the last war that could be avoided. Of course, when you're talking about war, but being
Yeah, that's the
the first
question.
war that is exposed to the social media, and it's like so global and so profound, and looks completely out of place. It kind of, I mean, Harari was saying, like, in the past, for since ever, let's say, peace was considered just like a temporary absence of war. So it's only like in this super tiny time frame of our whole timeline that actually it seems like war is a temporary interruption of peace. So I think overall that makes us, at least we should feel very lucky as a generation, or as a moment in time, where we have advanced so much that we consider that this war is just so unnecessary. Like, in every moment in the past, it was like war was just a normality. And but you can see, like, with this global solidarity and the whole sanctions and the whole kind of assistance, it kind of renders war almost like, it's a bit hard to understand what Russia is winning out of all these things, and it's so easy to understand what it's losing. So I think if we move into this direction, we can kind of create a collective sort of resistance towards against war, moving forward in the future, but we should be able to be more proactive. So in this case, of course, nobody imagined that this would happen, but we can show this solidarity more proactively in the future, in the other occasions where these wars can be even not. Nobody would dare to do such wars, because they would already feel the opposition, let's say.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and I do agree. On the other hand, there are still areas in the world where there is war going on and just doesn't stop going on, and it's just a normality. And so I think what this reminds me is that this specific conflict and war is very close to home, so it feels like much bigger. If I think of the conflicts in South America or in the Middle East, they felt so far away, even though they're still happening partly. So I don't know. I think, yes, global solidarity and support, but it's still shown that there's a 2-tier or a 3-tier status ladder, and that because this is happening in the EU and Russia is involved and the US is not involved but has commented on it, it's sort of like a bigger problem or a bigger issue than other conflicts or atrocities, for example, in the Middle East. So I think it's a really big discussion. There are so many facets and perspectives to be taken. But this one is definitely very close to here. I mean, extremely close. You mentioned the refugees. It has economical impact. It has, business impact too. I mean, it has personal impact. It's just really close.
No,
Guys,
definitely.
you will excuse me if we close it here, because I do have to go to pick up my son.
Oh no, definitely.
No, we went even overboard because we were having so much fun.
Yeah, no,
So-
I could definitely sit for another 2 hours. That's for sure. But
No, let's stay in touch. We definitely don't want to keep you away from your son. Irgen, thank you very much for spending time with us on a Sunday, and we'll see you around soon. And you're always welcome back to come back and share more of your beautiful projects, and also bring on some of your collaborators and partners.
Yes.
thank you very much. Good luck
Thank you,
with the next
Irgen.
100, and
Thanks.
keep in touch.
Bye.
Bye bye.
See you.
Every time I say bye, I'm like almost clicking to leave. It's like every time it's like, nope, that's not for me.
Yeah, let's share a little bit of the Discord if someone wants to join us for.
So we just have 10 minutes on there because at 4 Tutor is joining us.
Yes, so we're having a short break.
Yeah, I think let's do a short little mini break.
Yeah.
You have it open. Super.
So we have the Discord. So if you guys want to chat with us, just join the Discord. You can see also here the rules of the server. And if you're not on Discord yet, we suggest you to have like an account, because it's the thing now, kinda. And we're gonna be having a 10 minutes break before the next guest comes. So stick around, and we're starting at 4 with Tudor Vasilio from the Panopticon, Romanian office for architectural visualization. As I mentioned in the beginning of the live, unfortunately, Fabio Palvelli had a problem, so he won't be able to make it to the stream. But we will be having on then afterwards Arturo Tedeschi, and I think it's going to be a quite long live, as we're over almost at 3 hours now. So yeah, it will be interesting. And yes, hope to see you around for 4 o'clock. And now a little break.